couple other thoughts. One on Jacob Cowing. We're talking a lot about Ricky Pearsall, but Jacob Cowing, Matt Barrows did an interview with Scott McCloughan, the former Niner GM, who called Cowing one of his favorite players that the Niners drafted this year. Why is that of note? Well, in the past, he's like guys like Talanoa Hufanga as late round picks. So he's got a pretty good eye for personnel, and he likes Cowing, and he called him lightning in a bottle. Well, that was a few weeks ago. And then yesterday, ESPN NFL analyst Louis Riddick also said that Jacob Cowing is lightning in a bottle. And I don't know if he just read something from McCloughan and then is parroting it, or if they just happen to choose the same phrase. But either way, guys, Riddick is a former personnel guy. McCloughan's a very accomplished personnel guy. I think it's pretty clear that both these guys agree on this, that the Niners found a gem in the 4th round in Jacob Cowing. I love the pick as well, and here's why. Because to me, there's good players, and then there's great athletes. And if you're really going to get a great draft choice in the NFL, you've got to find good college football players who test out as great athletes, because that means they know how to play the game, they play it at a high level, and yet they're great athletes, so they can step it up at the next level and be, productive even against NFL caliber athletes. So to me, that's Jacob Cowing. I mean, he was 3 years in a row, 1,000-yard producer, receiver, did it at UTEP, did it at Arizona, did it at the end of his career, and he ran 4.38. So to me, he is that subsection of great college production meets great NFL athletic traits. And when you have those two things, I think there's potential for true greatness. So I also am a belief that Cowing is going to have a huge year. Where are you guys with Cowing?
I don't think he's going to have a huge year, but I think he's got a lot of the things the 49ers have sought, which is with Danny Gray, basically since that they've been looking for, since Marquise Goodwin.
There we go.
Genuinely, they've been looking. Exactly. They've been looking for a guy who can flat out burn people. And I think Cowing does that. And I think he also has the polish and production to know how to just inside run for 15, 20 yards, which honestly, if you move Debo, like, he doesn't have anywhere near the same level of physicality, but in terms of just the catch a ball and run, like, he's got some of that. So listen, small guy, I got to see. I mean, we're talking about if Pearsall can hold up. I got to see if he will not explode into lightning bug dust, as Invader 49er said his nickname was. Is he going to just is he just going to crush into dust?
5'8", 165 pounds. Like, he could die.
Right. When I see guys who are smaller than me, I have a little bit of a worry, because if I was out there, I would die. How are they surviving is my question. I like the production. I like the speed. I'm optimistic about him, much more so than Danny Gray. I think he's more of a proven commodity.
Yeah, Danny Gray can't run any route but a 9.
Right. So, listen, I don't know what he's going to actually do for them this year.
There is an ideal circumstance for a Jacob Cowing, and it's something that you and I have talked about, Larry. It's something that Jake and I have certainly talked about. His name is Tank Dell. He was a wide receiver for the Houston Texans. I don't need to tell you about Tank Dell. Tank Dell was incredible last year for the Texans. Tank Dell is about 5'8" and 165 pounds. And Tank Dell is really, really fast. Tank Dell can only really run about 3 routes. He can run a 9, a 7, and a 5. Guess who else can only run about 3 routes? And they're pretty much the exact same things. Jacob Cowing. And again, it's a lofty comparison to say Jacob Cowing's the next Tank Dell. But when you are Kyle Shanahan and you have now spent your offseason looking at what your former protege, Bobby Slowick, was doing to make a rookie quarterback the number 1 passer in the NFL in yardage last year, and you look at the Texans offense, which takes your principles and just expands them 50 yards down the field and turn the Texans into something really enjoyable to watch, like an NFL blitz team, man. This thing was video games. And you see Tank Dell doing these things, and you're Kyle Shanahan, and you're thinking, I don't have anybody who can do anything like that. So you go out and you get the best facsimile of Tank Dell in this draft. His name is Jacob Cowing. And again, I'm not bullish that he will do this, but Jacob Cowing can do a couple of things right now at an NFL level. He can run that 7-yard drag route all day, he's got it. He's got a couple of things down. You look at his Arizona tape, he ran the same crap again and again and again. He's a Jed Fish guy at Arizona. Chris Furster was a Jed Fish guy back in the day. Those guys go back to Baltimore. There's some incestuous stuff going on here. Regardless, I think Cowing has a chance to be a really interesting player for the 49ers. He's buried on the depth chart. He'll have to work his way up. It's going to be tough to get over Jawan Jennings in the slot and on, third down situations. And we know Pearsall is going to be knocking at the door for reps. So it's going to be hard to see where Cowing fits in. But one injury and Jacob Cowing can get thrown in, and he might be a guy who, once he is thrown in, you can't take out. Because, again, 2 words, Tank Dell.
It's a good one. And Tank Dell was great at University of Houston, and it's amazing, the Texans didn't even have him in the playoffs, and they still almost went to the Super Bowl. Watch out for the Texans, by the way. One last one on the Niners, and we'll hit a little Giants and get out. We also have a couple supers here. But Fred Warner, I asked Fred Warner, I said, Fred, of the young linebackers in Niner camp, who's been the most impressive to you? And I thought there was at least a 50-50 chance that he would have begged out and just been like, they all look good. They all look good.
He's going to name all the safeties.
Yeah, exactly. Do what Sorensen did and just name every safety that's on the roster.
I'll tell you, I just love all these guys. Something in the water here.
There's nothing but love. But I said to Fred, basically I was asking him between D. Winters, Jalen Graham, and Tatum Bethune, who's had the best OTAs, who's had the best offseason of the linebackers. He heard my question and then came back with this. He said D. Winters has had the best OTAs on the entire team. So that obviously caught my attention. And now here we are a couple days after minicamp, and that quote is starting to now bubble to the surface with the rest of the Niner content creator people out there who are seeing it. The fact that Fred said this, that D. Winters was not just the best linebacker, wasn't just the best among the young linebackers at OTAs, that D. Winters has had the best OTA period of anybody on either side of the ball on the entire football team. What did you guys make of that? And, it's hard to say. I mean, I really like Jalen Graham. I think D. Winters has got some potential as well. I have not seen the same level of performance that Fred Warner has, but Fred knows what he's watching. He's in the meetings. He knows who's progressing, and he loves D. Winters. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, it's tough to watch, coverage of linebackers, especially without pads. Like you mostly see it at the catch point underneath. D. Winters, I will say, he's a guy where the knock on him really was size, but I think he went to TCU and he has high level movement skills and really had a nose for where to be. Like he got downhill quick. He covered ground well in the pass game. So for him to be the guy that's singled out doesn't really surprise me. It was always like a question of physically, can he be there? Mm-hmm. And I obviously need to see more. But if he can be like, there's a spot for a third linebacker and a spot for somebody to maybe steal it from Devondre Campbell. So that third linebacker spot really wide open. And I could see a chance for Winters to take that spot, maybe even move next to Warner. Like, I don't know if he has the size for that. I need to see it with pads on. I definitely didn't see him and be like, oh, this guy's dominating the way Warner did. But, again, Fred's also probably locked in on the linebackers, in a way we're not.
Yeah. I mean, I will cop to it. I didn't notice D. Winters, good or bad. So take that for what it's worth. I don't try to lock in on the linebackers too much for the same reason. Most of the time, they're just getting cooked. I mean, linebackers in 7-on-7s, they might as well throw some of those tackling dummies out there. It's not fair. And I guess that's the entire premise of the Shanahan offense, but it still doesn't make it nice or enjoyable to watch. I'll say this, D. Winters is going to be on this team because he's a very valued special teams player, and special teams have never been more important than they will be this upcoming season with the new kickoff rules. So he's around. And frankly, at this point, the Niners with the linebacking core just need human beings that they can rely on to be around. I'm not bullish on where these linebackers are. And with Dre Greenlaw, who knows when he comes back? I mean, Campbell's out there. I can see why Campbell was available. Let's put it that way. When we're talking about the ability to flip his hips and, really cover in space. I mean, it looks like he'll be the center of a lot of game plans if he's playing. So anybody who can mitigate that and take a few snaps away, just bring something that's a positive pop, whether that be in coverage or whether that be, lay in the wood, I think would be a big win. We've been very spoiled lately with Fred Warner, with his ability to just do everything at an exceptional level.
And he's
Really
going to be
does.
asked for more of that this year. He's
That's right.
basically him and Brandon Staley are gonna. And I tried to ask Staley about that to be
He
like,
didn't
you're
give him yet.
basically coordinating the defense with Fred Warner, right?
Right.
And
Right.
he gave me nothing on it. But like that's the thesis is like maximize
sense.
Warner. This used to be a team that was just centered around getting home with the pass rush, and it still is to an extent. But I
Yeah.
really do think it's more going to be like coverage. How can we use Warner as a weapon in all facets of the game and
Yeah.
use our safeties and corners in unique ways because they're built a little differently than they have been.